we're going to pass over to Monique. Well, Dr. Monique Olif. Sorry, Monique, if I mispronounced that. Olif, I think it is. And so Monique is the director of WellSense and one of the founding members of the Critical Conversations Association. She operates out of Kenya in East Africa. My geography's clearly not very good. Sorry, everyone. And she was also involved in our flagship population conversation in Kenya, has worked in international health for 25 years as a clinician, a researcher, and a public health practitioner working alongside frontline health workers throughout Africa. And Monique has a passion for hands-on approaches to wellness in Africa and looks closely at the roots causes of the diseases. So, Monique, without further ado, I will mute us and pass over to you.
Thank you. Well, hello, everybody. So yes, I'm representing the Critical Conversation Association of Kenya. We are a membership-based association, and our mission is to use the catalyzing power of the arts to unlock sticky conversations, specifically the sticky conversations around population and consumption on our finite planet. And these being the two root causes affecting the future of Kenya's youth. And our vision is a nation of courageous young people, emboldened to lift their heads out of the sand and make every choice count in order to see the future with new eyes. So we came about as a result following the ICPD 25 in Nairobi, where we were shocked, really, to discover that population growth was not mentioned in a single presentation. And following that, the COP 2022 in the UK, there was no reference, once again, to population challenges facing young people in sub-Saharan Africa. It wasn't until 2022 in Egypt when Executive Director of AFIDEP, Elijah Zulu, stood out and said how population growth was a homegrown African challenge and, as Harish said, an opportunity. And there can be no sustainable development without sustainable population and sustainable consumption. So our context in Kenya is obviously different to that of India. However, we have a growing population of under 25-year-olds, with 60% of our population under the age of 25. And we're looking at 100 million by 2050. We were at 12 million in 1972. And of course, the demand for resources is going to soon surpass available resources. Demand for primary schools is going to double in the next 25 years, and the secondary 72%. We have a high dependency ratio of 77 dependents to every 100 people of working age, and most of whom are not working. And of course, our planet is heating at an alarming rate, and how population growth and family planning are still left out of our climate change adaptation proposals in Kenya. So what do we do? The goal of our population conversation is to give young people the space to think and talk openly about their futures. So beyond education, to create a conversation, specifically in relation to the number of children they wish to have and those they are able to care for in the current economic and environmental climate of Kenya. And to reflect and take time to consider their futures and the pressures that they are facing, both environmentally and socioeconomically. And of course, our work is always coming from an ethical, proactive space that supports choice. So our focus areas are currently bordering conservation areas where there's still an appreciation and contact with nature. So our current phase is in the Mara ecosystem, which you can see down to the left. Phase 2, Samburu and Mambaseli, and phase 3 in Kiunga. And our shift our intention is to shift attention away from family size being a reproductive health choice, which is where it has stood mostly in Kenya, but instead a survival and quality of life choice. So what do we do that is different? There are key features to our work. It is interactive in the sense that we use the power of music, theatre and storytelling to catalyze these sticky conversations that to date have not been had in Kenya. Of course, our focus is on youth. We target young Kenyans and their pivotal role in shaping the future of their communities and their nation. And the issues of being interconnected. So the issues we're touching are cross-cutting. And so we focus on the interconnectedness. And as one of our participants will share with you later, a lot of this can often happen in silos, but we're focusing on the interconnectedness of all these issues. And the key feature of our work is active hope. And it is the heart of our program. Because despair leaves a young person without a compass. And with our focus on young people, we want to wield hope as a massive source of energy required for young people to reimagine their future on our finite planet. So why theatre? This program recognizes the art form of storytelling as a deeply African practice, and it celebrates the richness that has been passed down and through oral literature. The stories we tell in our program are not didactic, but they are thought-provoking. They aim to facilitate new thinking through imagination, inspiration, and questioning. And the richness of the program comes in the discussions that come out of witnessing the theatre performances. The stories take the participants on an emotional journey of self-discovery, allowing them to exercise their imagination through the creation of safe space to discuss these sensitive topics at one step removed from their self and their own experience, and then possibly through choice to bring that space, bring the discussion into their personal space and experiences. And the program recognizes the power of our human imagination, offering stories not as an escape from reality, but as a new way of looking at reality through active hope, both reimagining and working to create the change, of course, towards a better future for our young people. Here are some quotes from our communities. Up until now, I have not joined the dots. I mean, I had not seen the relationship between the troubles I'm seeing, between the ancient forest of trees being cut down for charcoal and the disappearance of our natural springs, and the competition between neighbors with the increase in our numbers. Another young person said, yes, we are the golden generation. It is upon us to have smaller families, to turn the wind of population growth. Otherwise, we know we will be unable to feed and water ourselves. Already now, it is a challenge. So what is active hope? Active hope is about finding and offering our best response to the crisis unfolding in our world. It starts by accepting that the challenges we face can be really difficult to look at. Climate change, the dieback of our natural world, and the planetary emergency we can all see unfolding. But active hope strengthens our capacity to face this disturbing information and respond with resilience and what we believe is creative power. So active hope guides us on a journey. It starts with gratitude. It moves to honoring our pain or grief. It connects to interconnection and seeing with new eyes, and then ultimately finding a way forward. So we run our program through pods with young people. Again, it starts from a place of gratitude. We start all our sessions with grounding with nature. Some of the stories are around creation myths, around grounding and rhythms and cycles. And then there's an opportunity for honoring the pain, a focus on the take of our human existence and our relationship with nature. And then some of our pieces of theatre focus on honoring the pain and understanding the pressures on the planet often through conversations and exploring the relationship with our ancestors. And seeing with new eyes is where these young people have an opportunity to start conversations with and for our planet. When I look, another quote from one of our community, sorry. When I look around me, it feels as though I have no control over what is happening around me, that there is no hope. The financial pressures, the cost of living, the pressures for land, water, and food. But today you have shown me that there is something I can do. There is something that is totally within my control, something that is my choice and within my reach, that does not need me to be rich or educated, that my choices count. And now I feel that there is hope. So here are some images of some of the work and the communities that we're working with. In the center, you'll see a young man with a piece of paper. This is a land division exercise, land being a very significant part of Kenyan identity and culture, and exercises, pieces of theater work around the division of land and what it means to pass land on to our descendants. What's important in our program is that we're celebrating Indigenous practices. This is not an imported agenda. We are not promoting the Western nuclear family and saying that that is the way. The association has been established by Africans for Africa, and a smaller family unit at this time of change is not anti-culture. A smaller family unit can currently reduce pressures on families and enhance quality of life. And the program recognizes that there are many Indigenous practices that honor the planet and that these need to be encouraged. Hence the relationship with ancestors. So the program looks very closely at ancestors, and the young people are still have a strong connection with their ancestors. We are the future ancestors. We must make choices that will not destroy the chances of our descendants. The land exercise showed me that land is finite. If I wish to be a wise ancestor, I must have children by choice, not by chance, so that the land I leave to my children is sufficient for life. Another message from the young people: you are not teaching us in tunnels or silos. Instead, you are telling us a story, and the story is unfolding. It is passing a message, perhaps from the ancestors, a warning to be wise before it is too late. And our program is also addressing the challenge of engaging these conversations with religious leaders and different denominations. And interestingly, we've had quite a number of religious leaders join the sessions that we run. And this has launched a whole new part of our program, which will be strengthened next year. Interestingly, one religious leader who attended some of the performances said, God created Earth for mankind, and we are now stewards of his creation. With this comes a responsibility. If we reflect on the future of these children we have, having many children in this day and age is a form of greed and selfishness. So these are just some of the top of the responses to the work that we're doing using theatre, using interactive learning. Often education can be one way communication, and using theatre has given us an opportunity to allow young people to ask some of the questions they've never had an opportunity to ask before in a safe space. Of course, the population conversation is not a one-off conversation. We have a toolkit of stories that address the issues from many different angles and open the space for these critical conversations to be had with different groups. It's never a one-off conversation, and that's why we are an association. And anyone with whom we've had contact is invited to join the Critical Conversation Association, so that through an evolving platform, we can build the momentum behind having these critical, difficult conversations, and again, not burying our heads in the sand. And the population conversation can't be had in isolation. Obviously, the issues of policy and practice come into play. And we're working hard to use the same methodology with policymakers and learning the whole time through monitoring and evaluation and learning aspect to our program, which with Population Matters support will grow in strength. And here you can see the inspiration and the hope in the eyes of these young people. And that is what we believe needs to be kept alive in order for there to be a hopeful future and a shift in the way we see things. So like I said, we're constantly developing new content. Our target is to tackle preteens, religious leaders, continue to work with teens to be able to offer contraception and family planning to those who need it right there and then. And of course, to build our membership base of young people so that they can continue to have a forum and a platform where they can ask questions, and for that education to be initiated by them through through a space where they can ask questions and receive responses, not through social media, but through contact with a human being. And finally, this is a quote that kind of encapsulates where we're coming from. As human actors within the age of the Anthropocene, one of our unique abilities is that of telling stories. Humans have done this since time immemorial. The powerful journey of storying, helping us to remember and reclaim our past, make sense of our present, and call forth new visions of the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monique. It's always really humbling to be reminded and to see the real world impact of population growth and to see those penny drop moments. And so, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Are there any questions online? So we're running a little bit over, so we've got 5 or 10 minutes for a few questions, and then as you said, we can make everything else available online.
All right, cool. Yes,
So,
I have so many for Kenya.
Okay, lots for Kenya.
But
Okay.
I'll try.
Lots for you.
Yeah, I'll be very fast. So, all right, let's start with Daniel. The way they came in. Now, there's Vera. I would like to ask Monique to comment on the fact that there seems to be far more male participants than female ones in her events. Okay, interesting. Then I have Daniel from Ugenya Youth Community Development Project in Kenya. What age groups of young people do you target with your programs? And to kindly share what your experience has been like in terms of cultural resistance among indigenous communities in regards to nuclear families and how you handle it, if at all. Yes, and still, Monique, I don't know if I'm bombarding you with a lot of.
But I think some of those questions are equally applicable, I think, to so the experience of what cultural resistance, I think, is
exactly. I'll just get one from Professor John Steele for Monique. And that will be the last one from Kenya. The rest we shall really address online. Do you have enough resources, Monique? The actual methods like implants and pills and IUDs and the informed providers in the services for the 60% young, that huge number of potential future parents in Kenya? Who are the main donors, e.g. MSI? Yes, the floor is yours, Monique.
So Monique, I don't know if that was concise enough, but it sounds like there's what age are the participants, why mainly men, and do you have enough resources? And I think the question of resources is probably equally applicable to both you guys. So we can maybe talk about that, and then also cultural resistance we can take as well.
Yes, yeah.
So Monique, do you want to start, and then we'll kind of finish off?
Sure. Great. So yeah, the first question. I think maybe I was a little not careful enough in my selection of photographs, but you are right. We've had slightly more men involved, which so actually in our last phase we've engaged 764 young people, and 341 of those were women, and 423 of those were men. So yeah, you got a good eye. We're about 82 men in the last phase more. However, that we've seen as a positive thing. Again, the shift away from looking at reproductive health as a female-only issue and engaging men in the conversations has been something we've been really positive about. We've had very few situations where young men have walked out the sessions. In fact, it only happened once, and that relates to the second question, which is related to the resistance to nuclear families. Our approach is not to go in and educate. Our approach is to present pieces of theatre, again, that are not didactic. So it's not educational, it's not theatre for education, it's theatre for transformation. So the pieces of theatre are raise issues that then elicit conversations. And so we at no point come in and say that a smaller family is two children. But through the process, the participants acknowledge and recognize that 2 is the number that would be best. And so we don't come in with a prescription of what a smaller family equals. And that's really, really important in the methodology. And as a result, we don't see resistance because it's conversation, it's education through conversation. If we're talking about education, it's conversation that creates education, and as a group, they educate each other. It's very, very powerful and very hard to describe to you in this way. It'd be great to show you in person. So Daniel, if you are interested, we'd love to have you come see some of our work and join the association. And then finally, with regards to logistics and resources, something that's really lacking is trained healthcare workers knowing how to put the implants. So the implant being one of the favorite methods for young girls, particularly who can plan for 5 years, 3 to 5 years, to actually consciously make the decision that they do not want to have a child until they've finished their education or until they're 21 and their brain is fully developed, and etc. And something that is really, really lacking in Kenya are trained healthcare workers able to insert implants. And at the moment, the demand for the uptake of family planning is still not great enough, and accessibility, there are still so many barriers, including laws that do not allow these issues to be discussed in school settings, particularly high school settings. So there are still some real barriers, but in the interim, having trained healthcare workers able to put in implants is a major barrier.
I'm just conscious of time, Florence,
Yeah.
and so I think we started about 5 minutes late, so we'll take another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
If that's okay. But on cultural resistance and the availability of resources, Harsh and Awa, I don't know if you want to take a couple of minutes to talk about that as well in your context.
Yeah, cultural resistance is something like this. I'll give you another example. That in best of the best, economically well doing families, their girls are not given same education what education is given to boys. So boys will go to the good schools and girls will either go to a government school with no resources, or after certain age, they will say now no more education is required. You learn how to run a household. I think the cultural resistance, because I was listening to my other colleagues, it's the same story everywhere. Secondly, about the resources, see the thing is that even in the cultural resistance, I would like to say that once you educate the girl, then they start demanding their own rights within their own families. And then they say that, okay, we also need education. We also need livelihood. On the resources thing, I will see one thing that, see, in India, there is no, there are like private donors, companies giving money on education, but their way of looking the problem is only mathematical problem with mathematical solution. They will say how many schools are there, how many desks are there, how many books are being provided, because they are not interested to see education as the instrument for social transformation. So therefore, what we try to do under this project is that we do fields work, we create knowledge and share it with even these donors also, that they can also have a change in their own thinking, that education is not simply a technical problem with technical solution. It is also a social problem. You require a more comprehensive solution for that. The resources have to be, although whatever minimum resources are there availability, that should be designed in such a way that it benefit who actually needs that solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think briefly, in the case of Nigeria, in the past, you used to have religious resistance, or let me say cultural resistance. And there were so many misinformation that, look, you have to have so many children so that you can be proud as a good, religious believer. But now the reality on the ground is touching everyone. So we have seen even some religious scholars actually telling people that, look, don't go and have so many children if you cannot take care of them. Don't have 4 wives, 3 wives if you cannot take care of them. So I think positively, we are getting to have a new change of narrative from so many people, because we are facing reality. People are, are suffering from so much poverty, and therefore there's no way you can continue to justify this unplanned, number of children that you are, having. Regarding the resources, I think sadly our government has not really given so much attention in terms of providing adequate resources to train, or to educate the children, and also ensure that the healthcare system is also taken into consideration. So we are still battling with limited resources to be able to deal with issues of education, deal with issues of healthcare system, and also ensure that the children, are well, are protected. We need the resources to be able to do that. And as it is now, we are not able to match the resources with what is required now.
Yes, Josh, let me just throw in some questions for especially Nigeria and the whole panelists. We have Alistair Curry. Hi, Alistair, and Olivia Netta, who also actually she's up with us. Wow, interesting. Thank you for being with us. So, do the panelists think this can be a yes or no, answer? Do the panelists think that their governments take these issues seriously, and what would you like to see them do? And then I have Olivia. I think you briefly mentioned this. What are the main reasons the Nigerian government's efforts to increase family planning uptake have been ineffective? And then something still about really, I see a comment on consumption and population.
Let's stop with the first two questions, and we'll have to submit written responses to the rest. But given the second question was about Nigeria, how would you want to start?
Yeah. So Nigerian government, we have been advocating and pushing for Nigeria to be more responsible in terms of addressing issues of population. To first start with, that there's a poor literacy around population in Nigeria. Based on even the research we have conducted, we found out that many people do not even actually have any iota of population literacy. So that's a big challenge. And if you have policymakers, you have legislators that are also not having literacy around population issues and family planning, is a challenge, and therefore what we have been doing as an organization is to be advocating for, government to ensure that issues around population are taken seriously. We cannot continue without knowing how many of us are. Nigeria has not conducted, census, since 2006. This is ridiculous. How do you plan for development? So there are a lot of gaps, and part of what we do as civil society is to advocate for government to be more proactive on this. And I think we are, succeeding in drawing the attention of government to do that.
So, Harsh, I think I'm going to give you the last spot of the Q&A session before we wrap up.
Yes, how government takes it. See, what we are targeting is that government should take it seriously in the sense about the quality of education and the access to education. The access should be available to everyone, and the quality should be such that it is linked with livelihood and empowerment, not theory. So that is two things.
Monique, sorry, I forgot. Did you want to respond to the Kenyan context in terms of the government taking it seriously and how high up on the priority list it is?
Yeah. So Kenya, so we've, as Critical Conversations, we've been invited to be the youth representative on the new population strategy for the next 10 years, and being the youth's voice in the discussion, and for young people to be able to speak up and say that their future is at risk. And I think that there is now an opening to consider the idea of population being critical to the quality of life of
Mm.
future generations, and smaller families being something that is feasible and within reach. So I'd say it's early days, but compared to what we saw 3-4 years ago, there's definitely some openings now to start considering population as an absolutely fundamental part of sustainable development, and alongside that, consumption being absolutely fundamental to the same conversation. We can't keep them; they can't be considered separate. They are root causes to where we are at.
I couldn't have wrapped up more perfectly myself. So thank you so much for our three speakers for joining us. Thank you for everyone that's joined us online, and for those in the room as well. We've obviously got some more questions that we'll respond to in time. But yeah, thank you very much. Hope you found that as enjoyable as we did. And yeah, we look forward to your participation and anything that you can do to raise the profile of these issues in your own work would be great to hear about as well. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes.